welcome you to our live stream tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking with Reed Bidgood, who is one of our newer instructors here at Dion Training. And so I wanted to let you all meet him, get to know him a little bit. And then we're going to be taking all of your questions on all topics that you guys want to talk about, whether that happens to be cybersecurity, information technology and service management, or project management and data analytics. Reed specifically is part of our data analytics, including Data Plus and other courses that we're developing for that, and our project management courses, specifically Prince 2 and Prince 2 Agile. So you'll be seeing him in a lot of those courses with me as we're continuing to build out those product lines for you to be able to help you with all the different certifications. But before we get started, I do want to introduce Reed. So Reed, welcome. I'd like for you to tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, everybody. Reed Bidgood here. I've been with Dion Training for about a year now. I am an Air Force veteran. I did 4 years as an intelligence officer where I was working with linguists. And so to kick off things and for you to get to know me, I have 3 fun facts that, will kind of cut through some of the stuff, keep you guys interested. So the first fact that I have that will also kind of tie into my background is I've got 2 secret talents. So back in the day, I was a competitive swimmer in high school, swam during the summers, like all as a kid. And so I'm very good at holding my breath. I actually have a record of holding my breath for over 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I would practice going under. I could swim 50 yards underwater with a single breath. So that's my first fun fact. I'm also really good at skipping stones for whatever reason. Growing up, my dad would always take my brother and I out to go pick wild raspberries out in Pennsylvania and Delaware. And so we would go out, pick some raspberries. My mom would make a pie. And during that time, I would learn how to skip stones and look for crawfish. And then occasionally would bring some crawfish back too. But my mom didn't like that very much. She thought it was gross. So after that, growing up, I went to a military high school. And then I decided to join the Air Force. And I really enjoyed my time and my service. But before I commissioned through ROTC at the University of Delaware, I was a Chinese major, hence why I worked with linguists. And my capstone project as a Chinese major is that I sang a duet in Mandarin Chinese for the governor of Delaware during the 2018 Chinese New Year Festival. So I still remember the lyrics. It was probably the most mortifying experience I've ever had, trying to be in front of a stage of like 500 people singing in a foreign language. But I learned a lot, and it definitely emphasizes the importance of getting your reps in if you're going to speak in front of a large group of people or sing. And my last fun fact, which I've actually brought a prop for, I told Jason before this thing would kick off that he might be a little bit nervous. He got nervous when I said I had a prop for prop comedy. But as I was growing up, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, I actually played the flute. And I don't play the flute anymore. But during that time, I guess I was 10 years old at that time, my uncle decided to help me make a mixtape. And so I have Reed's Christmas Flute Spectacular. And
Wow.
So, yeah. Some of my close family members have these, and it's my very high-pitched voice saying, "Hi, this is Reed, and this is my Christmas Spectacular." And then it immediately starts with the national anthem, and as you can see, I've got an American flag behind me, so definitely representing the patriotic American, I suppose.
That is awesome. I love when you held it up. We could see baby Reed there. It's like 11-year-old Reed.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And so that's actually how I met my girlfriend, Angel. I was on a dating application, and that was my first picture. And she thought it was so funny that she swiped right on me. I was like, yeah, I want to get to know this guy. So those are my fun facts.
If she swiped right on that kid, you definitely need to keep her around.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm really happy to talk to all of you.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, as we go through, Reed and I are going to talk a little bit first about project management. Then we're going to start taking your questions. So if you have a question, feel free to drop them in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. It does consolidate into our chat log. And Christina is in the other room on the other production booth, and she's keeping track of those questions, and she'll be jumping in reading the questions to us, and then either Reed or I will answer it based on what the question is and who's the better answer for you for that. I do want to say, welcome to everybody. If you want to tell me in the chat where you're from, it's always interesting to me to see where people are from because we have such a global audience. So I see somebody had said, buenas noches. So I know we have some Spanish speakers in the audience. I saw somebody said ni hao, so they must be talking to Reed because they're talking Mandarin.
Oh boy.
I don't speak Mandarin. So so if you want to talk Chinese, talk to Reed. If you want to talk Spanish, I can probably cover, but that's about it. But yeah, I see it all popping up. I see Grand Rapids, South Florida. Hey, I'm from South Florida, Mark. So that's my old stomping grounds. I'm up here in Orlando now. Reed's actually up in Delaware. For those who don't know, Dion Training, we started as a very small company. It was me by myself. Then it was me and my wife. Then we started hiring on some other folks. We're now up to somewhere around 20 to 25 people across 6 countries and multiple time zones, which is a real handful to manage and deal with. And we have 3 instructors on staff right now, plus several others that we bring in for other projects. Reed is one of our staff instructors. You met Jamario last month, who's one of our other staff instructors. Jamario works with me in the cybersecurity space and the IT service management space. Reed helps me out with all the project management and data analytics stuff. And then we're also bringing on more people as we continue to grow into other areas. So keep your eyes out for all of that. I see Ohio, Ontario, North Carolina, Texas, Ecuador. We got people all over the place. So it's great for you guys to join us tonight. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with some of your questions. So I think Christina has one for us. Go ahead, Christina.
Hey, Jason, I actually saw a question through the chat. Someone asked about whether or not they should go for a cybersecurity certification first or immediately join the Air Force. So that's right in my wheelhouse and something I'm very interested in talking about.
Awesome. I didn't hear Christina pop in, so I think her computer might have gotten offline. So I'll ask that question again for you. And the question is, should they go for a cybersecurity certification or should they join the Air Force? Reed, being the Air Force guy, I'll let you answer that because my answer is obviously not. The Air Force sucks, right?
Oh yeah, go. Just so everybody knows, I worked in a joint operation environment, so I've had experiences with all the different branches, went to a Navy high school. Air Force all the way. No veteran ever says, "Oh man, I shouldn't have joined the Air Force. I should have joined the Marine Corps or the Army." That's a 0% chance. And obviously, this is all in jest. But
yes. All the services love each other. We all just like to pick on each other. It's okay.
Yeah. So your question, it really depends on what you want to do. I know that that's super vague, but if you want to go enlisted, I would say immediately shoot for it. If you want to become an officer, it's best to definitely square your bachelor's degree away right now. And then from there, it's kind of luck of the draw on what position you take. The first would be get your ASVAB score as high as possible. For those that don't know, if you're going to enlist in the military, it's the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. So it's a whole different things. It's arithmetic and reading and writing and general mechanics scores. Get your ASVAB score up as high as possible, and then go from there because there's no time like the present. And then from there, you can negotiate with your recruiter and see if they can put you into there are certain positions specifically for offensive and defensive cyber operations. So talk to your recruiter and don't sign the paper until it's in writing. Okay, bring a friend, bring a veteran who knows what they're talking about if you're going to sign those papers for enlistment. For the officer corps, it's performance based. So make sure specifically for the Air Force, if you want to become an officer, make sure that you get your AFO QT score up, Air Force officer qualifying test, and then work with your detachment commander or your OTS recruiter, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I'll just say in general, when you talk about military, right, there are 4 branches plus the coasties. Well, I guess now we have a 5th branch with the Space Force, but you got Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy, Space Force, and then the coasties, the Coast Guard folks. And I will tell you that if you're trying to get into cybersecurity, there really is no better way than the military because even if you enlist and do 4 years, you can come in enlisted and have 0 background in cyber at all. They will put you through all of the training. They'll get you all your certifications. You'll get a security clearance. You'll go work someplace like the NSA or FBI or CIA or one of the military centers because there's a lot of military folks in all of those organizations. You'll get experience. And when you get out after 4 years, you are going to have everybody fighting over you because you've got a top secret security clearance at that point. You've got certifications. You've got 4 years of experience, and everybody's going to want you. So it's not a bad thing. That being said, the military is not for everyone. Reed and I are both military veterans. I was Navy, he was Air Force. Jamario, who you met last month, was also Air Force. Kip, who I work with a lot, Kip Boyle, he's also former Air Force as well. So for some reason, I keep attracting Air Force guys. I don't know why. My dad
It's
was a
because
Coast.
it's a good company. That's why we go to the
Yeah.
best.
My dad was a Coast Guard guy. My grandpa was a Navy guy. So I've always been a sea person, but that's okay. But I will tell you that when you go in the military, you're going to get all the experience you need. They hire based on aptitude. They don't hire based on experience. So, for example, I used to teach nuclear power instructors, and I had people who had film degrees and music degrees, and they're now running nuclear reactors, right? Because the Navy said, we look at your grades, we look at your aptitude, and we will put you through the training to become a nuclear engineer. We just want to make sure you're going to be capable of doing it. And so that's the most important thing when it comes to the military. I will say, the military is great, and it was great to me and my family for a long time, but it is a very tough role, right? 4 years is pretty easy to get through, but if you're going to make a career out of it and do 20 years, they're going to tell you where you're going to live, they're going to tell you where you're going to work, they're going to tell you what jobs it is, and it's always the needs of, we used to say the needs of the Navy or the needs of the Air Force. They're going to tell you where to go. We had a case in our own career where we were living in Florida. We asked for follow-on orders to stay in Florida, and they said, "Yeah, nice knowing you. You're going to Japan," and they moved us halfway around the world for a year, and then moved us back to the States right after. And so it is a big upheaval for your family. If you're young and single, it's a great way to get experience. But if you have a family, it is going to be a family decision because there are lots of things. And Reed's advice was really excellent, which is talk to military veterans, talk to people who liked it, talk to people who hated it, and find out the ground truth. Because there's great things, there's horrible things, and there's things in between. And the only way you're going to find that out is by talking to people who were in the service, and you should be able to find some in your area. So I think that's a great thing. Let me see, is Christina back on yet? I do not hear you, Christina, except for through the door. So you might just want to walk in here.
Yeah, Eddie, I see that you're an Army veteran. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I also see something. I took my Security Plus on Friday, got a 722 out of 750. Good stuff.
Well, that's not good stuff. That means they failed.
Oh boy, because it's passing is 900. Yeah,
passing is 750, so they got 722. So looks like they need a little more work on that one. All right, Christina, you had a question for us.
All right, we've got the first one. It says, I just finished cybersecurity boot camp at UCI. What is your advice to get a job and get better in the field? And what is the roadmap to get more knowledge?
Awesome. So I'll take that one if you don't mind, Reed, because I know I'm more of the cybersecurity guy. So the question was, they just are finishing a boot camp at UCI. In fact, I think I can pop this on the screen here. There we go. Hey, I just finished a boot camp at UCI. What's your advice for getting a job and how to get better in the field? Thank you. So when it comes to cybersecurity, right? I don't know exactly what's in your boot camp, but most of them are going to be generally a 2 to 3 month boot camp. They'll cover a couple of the certifications like Security Plus, maybe CEH or CYSA or Pentest Plus, and usually it's 1 or 2 or 3 certifications. A lot of those boot camps will have job placement at the end as well. So your instructors and your college will help you find a job. I will tell you that, when it comes to getting a job, the best advice I can give you, the first job is really, really hard to get. You're going to be putting out a lot of resumes and a lot of applications trying to get through the filters. I recommend checking out our podcast at yourcyberpath.com. That's yourcyberpath.com. And that has a ton of advice. We've got 80 something episodes at this point where we dive into each different job, each different career, and tell you what it's about and what to do. We have some episodes in there that talk about resumes and ATS, which is the applicant tracking system. And I would definitely check those out as well. What that means is when you look at a job and they say, hey, here's the requirements and here's the things we want, those are keywords, and your resume needs to have those keywords. So if you're applying to a job and they keep saying CEH, 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 and you have Pentest Plus, then I want you to write down there, certified, certified CompTIA Pentest Plus, parentheses, equivalent to CEH, because that will be something that will then be able to be caught by the tracking system. Because applicant tracking system is basically a big AI ML machine that's looking for candidates. Because it's so easy to apply online now with one-click LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, companies have to have a way to sort through all that mess. I can tell you we are a small company, and when I put out a job posting, I will get 50 to 100 applicants, and I'm a really tiny company. If I'm Facebook or Google, I'm drowning in resumes. And so if you want to be seen by them, you have to do some of the networking where you find people who work there and get them to recommend you. You need to make sure you have the right keywords so you're making it through the system. And really what it comes down to is at the end of the day, Companies are looking for people who can solve problems and be valuable day one. And so from that perspective, you're going to see that a lot of companies don't want to take a chance on somebody who has no experience. That being said, a lot of times medium-sized and smaller companies will take more of a chance on you based on your personality and whether they like you or not, than a large bureaucratic company. And there's also some of the big companies and the government that do have roles where you can get in with no experience, and they will train you as an internship or a OJT, on the job training, and you'll start out at a lower salary, and then after 6 months you'll go to a regular salary because now you're providing value because you've been trained. And so it's kind of hard when you're first starting out. That first job is really, really hard. But once you get it and you get a year of experience under your belt, people are going to be fighting over you, and you can jump to other careers and really quickly expand your career field and your job roles and pay. So keep that in mind as well. I think really the best advice is apply. Get comfortable with interviewing, get comfortable with modifying your resume. You should not be using the same resume for every job you're applying for. You want to use the language they're using in their job posting in your resume, because that's what ATS is looking for, and that's going to get you into the recruiter's desk. So then you can hopefully get an interview, and then hopefully get a second interview, because usually there's a soft skill interview and a technical interview, and then you'll get a job offer and negotiation. So those are the things I would say. Reed, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, on the keyword searches, you definitely have to pay attention to all of the keywords. For example, just to draw a parallel with that, I'm Prince 2 practitioner certified. Now, that is a European primarily certification for project management. So if I wanted to apply to a job in the United States, I would say Prince 2 practitioner equivalent to PMP, project management professional. So really pay attention to the verbiage and the language in the company that you're looking for. Also, I would personally look at the values that they state in their mission statement, because you can kind of tailor it even better to that. If there are certain buzzwords that they would like to use, like hone in on that and own it. And if you really want to get that job at that location, then put the time in and effort. I know it can be kind of disconcert, like it can be really tough, right? Because you might send out like a dozen or 2 dozen resumes. My girlfriend, before we moved down to Delaware, she had sent out 20, 30 resumes, and it's tough. It's really tough, but keep your chin up and keep going.
Awesome. Let's see, Christina, I'm going to see if we can bring you back in. Let's see if this works. Try unmuting yourself now. I think it should work.
Are we good?
There we go. All right. Go ahead, Christina. What's the next question?
All right. Our next question says, I'm new to this field and was looking to gain some knowledge into what field I can branch out into.
Awesome. So the person said they're new to the field and they're trying to figure out what they want to branch out into. So you didn't specify which field you're in. And for Dion Training, we actually have basically 4 career paths that we teach, right? We teach IT service management with our IDLE pipeline of courses. We teach cybersecurity with our CompTIA pipeline of courses. We teach data and data analytics with Data Plus, and then we teach project management using Prince 2, and we also have a PMP course as well. So depending on which of those 4 paths you're looking at will depend on which things you should do. I'm guessing, because most of my students ask about cybersecurity, so I'm going to guess that that's what you're asking about. And if you're trying to figure out how to get started in cybersecurity, really the best thing is going to be the Security Plus certification. It's going to give you the really good baseline foundation of everything. And then, do you attend many auctions? Sorry, I got distracted by the chat.
So can I interject on that real
Go
quick?
ahead.
Jason, I'm so sorry. So I had a nickname growing up, eBay. So yes.
He loves auctions. Yeah. So if you're talking about cybersecurity as that career field that you're asking, how do you get started in? Really, Security Plus is going to be the baseline. Every job out there in cybersecurity is going to ask you to have Security Plus, because it means you can at least talk intelligently about cybersecurity, even if you can't physically do the job yet, right? You may not know how to go through the logs and analyze them yet. You may not know how to do a pen test, but at least you understand the concepts and the technology and the things we're talking about. And so if I say, what is the CIA triad, or what are the 3 A's of security: authorization, authentication, and auditing, right? All that kind of stuff is what you learn in Security Plus. And so it really does lay that foundation, and it's really important for you to have that foundation when you move into cybersecurity. Then you want to get yourself some kind of experience, right? And you may not be able to get a job as a cybersecurity analyst or a pen tester right off front, but you could get a job as a help desk or a system administrator or a network administrator or something like that in the IT realm. And by doing that, you're going to be able to start building up experience that then you can leverage in your resume to get into cybersecurity. One of the things that my co-host on the podcast always says, Kip Boyle, is that, there are no 787 entry-level jobs. And if there are, as a pilot, as a 787 pilot, being an entry-level one means you've already had 2,000 flight hours on a 747 and a 737 and a Cessna and all these other planes before they're going to give you the keys to a 400-passenger jumbo jet, right? That's worth $1 billion. Cybersecurity is kind of the same. There's very few pure entry-level jobs in cybersecurity. Most jobs in cyber, you're going to come from already working in IT for a year or two. You're working in the help desk. You're working in field services. You may be working in a related field. Like if you're going in the auditing part of cybersecurity, I see a lot of people coming from accounting and bookkeeping because those are the same skills that are transferable into this cybersecurity world. And they do that by getting something like Security Plus and CYSA Plus, and then they're able to get into the job. So again, I didn't really hear which of the four paths you were looking at, but assuming cybersecurity, that's probably what you want to do. And then the other best piece of advice I can give you is look for the job you want on LinkedIn and Monster and Dice and places like that. Look in your area because things are regional. And like Reed said, if he's going to apply for a project manager job in Europe, in the UK, he better have Prince 2. If he's going to apply for one in Maryland, he better have PMP because those are the way things are done in those regions and in those different areas based on what's popular. So looking at those job descriptions and saying, hey, we're looking for a project manager and they have PMP, that tells you that's what they care about, right? And if you're seeing everybody in your area or 9 out of 10 are asking for PMP, guess what? You should probably go get PMP, right? And the same thing in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
If you keep seeing pen test, go get your pen test plus. If you see CEH, go get your CEH, right? You want to get what the employers are asking for because it's going to make your job easier of landing that job.
So, Jason, if I could touch on that too.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it really comes down to what you want to do, right? Like, do you like leading people? Well, maybe a management path is better because you're a little bit more extroverted and, you might be geared towards like a semi HR role. The reason why I ended up going with project management and data analysis is because I had some experience in data analysis, specifically from my intelligence background. But I like leading people and I like managing projects and budgets and timelines. And so if you're really organized, that's something that, might be an inclination for you. But if you really want to be that subject matter expert and dive deep, if you want to do coding, if you want to get really smart on routers and IT infrastructure and networking, it's just so broad. I know that this is probably going to be a lot of people will generally recommend going for the A+ first because guess what? Like most people do start at the help desk. Just like Jason said, I've got a relative right now who's getting ready for his A+ exam, and I've been working with him. And it's really the widest breadth of what you can do. I also saw some questions in the chat about what kind of programming languages you should go after. I mean, honestly, the most important thing is just pick one and start. There's no time like the present. I would recommend Python on the programming languages because it's easy,
Definitely.
it's high level, and you can do everything with it. But like you will find your path organically. But start at the lowest level, and then see what you like.
Definitely. And, the other thing I want to say is I see a couple of people in the chat saying, thanks for the courses you guys are passing. I saw Security Plus. I saw, it looks like Igor, if I'm saying that right. Sorry, I'm reading from across the room. Icor passed the CYSA last week. Congrats on that. I saw somebody else had passed their IDLE Foundation. So I love hearing that when you guys are passing the exams using our courses, or even if you're doing it without our courses, because I want to see you guys and gals, succeed. And if I say guys, I do mean that gender neutral guys. Sorry, I sometimes... I'm working on that. It's one of my idioms that I say that is not always the best. So guys and gals. And then, I saw a question here from Greg, so I'm going to pop this one up and we'll answer this one. So Greg said they're a cybersecurity professional. They took their courses on with IBM at Coursera, and they're almost done with the course for CYSA on Udemy. What do I think about IC Squared's CC certification, and do I think it will help? So based on where you are in your career, it sounds like you're already in cybersecurity, so I don't think CC is going to do much for you. For those who don't know, the new IC Squared CC, which stands for Certified in Cyber, which I think is the dumbest name for a certification ever, is their new certification, and it is very, very entry level. Basically, think about it as baby Security Plus. So if you already have Security Plus, don't worry about CC. It's not worth your time. That being said, if you're brand new to the field and you're like, hey, I want to figure out, is this cybersecurity thing even for me? You can do CC as you're certified in cyber to get that experience and get a really basic knowledge without having to go for the whole 30-hour Security Plus that takes a lot more effort. I will say that is one of the ones that just came out. There's another one that just came out, which is called the LPI Security Essentials exam, which is actually a little bit easier than CC because they ask the questions more straightforward. IC squared tends to ask things in a very convoluted manner most times. And I will tell you the LPI Security Essentials is one that I am currently working on and filming, and we will have a course out for that in the next 2 months or so. Myself and Kip Boyle are working on that together for people who are trying to break into cyber. And for any of those entry-level ones like that, where it's Security Essentials or CC or any of the ones like that, really, you're just showing employers, hey, look, I'm making the effort. I'm interested in this field, and they're a low-cost way of getting started. So I think CC, they cost like $150 to $200. The Security Essentials from LPI is like $100 to $125, whereas if you go for Security Plus, it's $392. So if you're not sure you even want to do this whole thing and put in all that effort, you can start with one of these entry-level ones, get an idea. Do I like it? Do I like having to be tested all the time? Because in the cybersecurity world, you're constantly taking tests to go to the next certification. And if you find that this is what you like, then you can go into, Security Plus, CYSA, Pentest Plus, CEH, IC Squared, CISSP, and things like that. Specifically for you, Greg, because you're already in cybersecurity, if you have 5 years of experience, I would start studying after your CYSA Plus for your CISSP through IC Squared. Very, very difficult certification, but well worth it if you can get it. And to answer the question before somebody asks, no, I do not teach IC Squared courses. I don't teach Certified in Cyber, and I don't teach CISSP. I do recommend ThorTeaches.com. Thor, like the Marvel superhero with the hammer, teaches.com. He does a great job on both of those, and so I just recommend him. And I will tell you that updating CISP, basically every year he has to redo the entire course. And if I did CISP, I wouldn't be able to do 10 other courses that we're doing for everybody else. So we made the business decision not to get into the CISSP market, let Thor handle that, and we then focus on the stuff that we do really well, and when we can serve a lot more people with what we do. So so that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Christina for the next question.
Hey, Jason, I got a message from her. It says that her connection is going in and out. So it might be best for us just to pick some questions off the side of the chat.
Sounds good.
I did see a few about whether or not information technology is right for me. And, I'll just share some of my personal experience. So coming from the veteran background, like I saw a lot of guys, like a lot of folks talking about that. Really, honestly, I just kind of like dove in with it. As you heard me say earlier, like I'm coming from a language background, soft skills, briefing, that kind of thing. And I cut an hour out of my day every morning before work, and I just studied. And I started with Network Plus and just went from there. For me, Network Plus was enough for my foot to actually get into the door with Jason. So I think a lot of that, especially for entry-level jobs, as long as you can demonstrate that you have the willpower and gumption to go after and study something and overcome it, oftentimes with help desk jobs or entry-level network technician positions, there will be a ton of on-the-job training, and they'll train you up to that standard that you need to hit. But of course, I'm coming from a cybersecurity company, so I'm going to advocate that you go and get your certifications because it is a great way to demonstrate that you have hands-on skills, especially with like practical labs and everything. But just make sure that you set that time aside and grind.
Christian, I'm not going to do a handstand. Sorry. I'm also sitting in the corner in front of the logo, so I can't like move too far. But anyway, I completely agree with what Reed said there, and I will tell you that when it comes to certifications, right? Certifications aren't the end all be all. And you'll hear me say this every single live stream, right? I have 30 plus certifications. You should not have 30 plus certifications unless you're a cybersecurity trainer, because I have to be certified in everything I teach. And same with Reed, right? So he's got a lot more certifications than somebody who would be going for one of these jobs would be. Generally, you need 3 to 5 key certifications that are relevant for what you're doing. So if you want to be in the IT service management world, get your ITIL foundation, get your DPI and your ITIL leader. Or if you want to be a service desk manager, you should be getting your ITIL foundation and your create, deliver, and support, and maybe 1 or 2 of the practices. That's really what you need for that. If you're in cybersecurity, Security Plus, yes. CISA, yes. And then either CEH or Pentest. If you get those 3, you're qualified for like 90% of the jobs out there, right? And then as you get more experience, that'll start doing it. And what the certifications do is tell an employer, I'm serious about this. I put the time in to study. I put the money in to take the test. And I am being validated by this third-party company that I have X amount of knowledge. Now, does it mean you're going to be the perfect pen tester? No, there's lots of people who can pass Pen Test Plus just by going through a 40-hour boot camp next week, and they're still not going to know how to do a pen test and how to do any actual on-keyboard stuff, but they can still pass the exam. And so certifications are limited in the value they have, but it is the easy button for HR and recruiters to be able to say, yes, this person has at least this much knowledge, and now I can at least say anybody below that, I'm not even looking at. Anybody above that, I'll consider for a job. And so that's why you'll see these certifications being really important from that perspective. Christina is now in the room with me, so she's actually monitoring your chat, and she's going to display the question. I'll read it, and then Reed and I will answer it. All right, the next question comes from Jakeem. I think is what it says. I'm reading from across the room, so again, apologize. Jakeem asks, does your Security Plus course teach how how to read logs of an attack? So the answer is yes, it does, but not to the extent that CYSA does. So Security Plus is do talk about logs, and you'll see in my practice exams, you'll see a lot of questions with those. So I'll show you 2 lines of a log and say, what kind of an attack is this? And you should be able to tell me, this is a directory transversal, this is an SQL injection, this is an XML injection, or whatever it is based on those logs. And we do give you practice with that. That being said, once you go into CYSA Plus, which is the next level, I always like to call CYSA Plus Security Plus Part 2, and applying all that knowledge in a more in-depth way. So you're going to get a lot more scenarios, a lot more in-depth. It's a much longer exam and a lot harder questions. But it's still covering pretty much all the same information from Security Plus. So you'll see a large overlap between the two. And yes, our course does cover logs in both CYSA and Security Plus, and again in CAS Plus, because they keep building on each other as they go up the pyramid. Next one, Christina. She's searching, sorry.
So on that note, right, I know that this doesn't directly address that previous question, but if you're trying to teach yourself something, don't be afraid to go and build your own labs. So you can download all kinds of open source software. Specifically, back in 2019, I was assigned to stand up a security operations center, and we were using the Elastic Stack, and I had to learn on the fly what different attacks looked like. Oh, hey, look, this log says that someone tried to, I don't know. It says that the password lockout is 3 times, 3 attempts, and it looks like this person tried to do 5. That's really weird. So like, don't be afraid to like go out and research different open source programs or software or platforms, and then play around and build your own things, because you can go and download something, there's Parrot OS and there's also Kali Linux, and you can go and download those tools for free on your own platform, create a virtual machine, and like just plug and play. And there's plenty of stuff online that you can search for and actually implement those things in real time, so you can actually catch those logs after you attack that system. Obviously, do everything legally. Don't attack anyone's systems that you don't have express written permission for. But you can play around with it and create your own stuff. So if you want to learn on the fly, that's a great opportunity too.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say on that is, with the cloud these days, it's really easy to create your own environment and be able to set up these attack and defense machines. Another tool, if you want to start learning cloud security and vulnerabilities, either from the defense or the attack side, is there's a tool called, oh my God, my brain just stopped working. I talk about it in my Pen Test Plus course, and we actually do a demonstration on it. Oh my God, why is my brain not working?
Metasploit? You're not talking
no,
about Metasploit,
it's specifically for the cloud, and it builds out like a vulnerable cloud for you. It's made by the people who do Prowler and Cloud Scout, but there's a SAG Cloud. That's what it's called, SAG Cloud. Okay, so if you search for SAG Cloud, there's a GitHub for it, and literally there's a script you run in your AWS environment, and it will create like 30, 40, 50 cloud-based services all tied together. It's all orchestrated. It turns it all on, and they're all vulnerable. Then, if you want to play as a defender, you can go through and try to patch all those things and fix them all, and then run a scan again and see if you did it. If you want to play the attacker, go ahead and attack against it, see if you can break into the network and find the vulnerabilities. And so doing things like that, where you have this network of all these different things, is really useful to really build up your skills. And then when you're in an interview, you could say, they might say, well, I see you don't have much experience. Like, well, I don't have a lot of experience, like I don't have a previous job, but I built my own lab and I did this. I used these tools, I did this thing, I used Metasploit, I used this attack, and that kind of stuff carries through in a job interview so they can see your passion. I can tell you on our team, one of our developers that we hired as a junior developer, he did not have a strong development background. He actually worked in the military as essentially a military police officer. And he's actually one of my better programmers now. And he's been with me for about a year, but we hired him based on the fact that in his off time, he was coding, he was developing, he showed us his projects, he showed us his GitHub, he showed his portfolio. We said, you know what, we're willing to take a chance on you. And when we hired him, he wasn't, 100% yet, but he was 50% and he was motivated, and he spends all the time in his nights and weekends getting up to speed. And now after a year, he's doing really good stuff and he's building real world applications that our students are actually using. And it was built by a guy that a year ago was a military police officer, right? So this is the kind of thing that happens in these job interviews when they're hiring for aptitude as opposed to already experienced knowledge. And you'll see that with a lot of companies, especially in those entry level roles. Christina, can you be fair and go one down from where you are? Thank you. And then we'll take the other one. All right, I'm going to answer this one real quick. We had a statement, Jason, I have not been on the job yet, but I had a lot of interviews in cybersecurity, and I want to know, are there any videos or books that talk about real-time incidents? I haven't seen any on recent incidents, but the best place I would go for that would be Krebs on Security. Brian Krebs is a journalist who focuses on cyber attacks and breaches and does an excellent job on his blog of going into depth on the latest breaches and attacks. If you want to look at a historical one of the books that I really, really love is called Worm, and the guy's name is Mark Bowden, I believe, who wrote it. And this is about the Conficker worm that came out in 2009, and basically how all these companies started working together to try to stop it from taking over the internet. And they were effective in doing that. But it was kind of interesting because when you look at this book from, now it's 15 years ago. I think he wrote it like 2011, 2012. It's still the way we do cybersecurity today. The only thing that's changed is the attack vectors. But the thing that you'll find with that is that they talk about the fact that it became this coalition of the willing, right? And it's called Worm, the First Digital World War is the name of the book. You can get it for about $10 on Amazon. Great read, really interesting. Highly recommend it for anybody who's interested in cybersecurity, because you'll see how just, a couple of passionate people can really stop really bad things from happening. And that's really what happened here. And it was over, 6 months or a year. And that particular virus, that worm, was able to take over so many machines on the internet, and it looked like it was going to be a big denial of service. And it ended up not being, because of these people who stepped up and stopped this attack. So a really good book, and I'd really recommend checking that one out. Christina, you had another question for us. All right. Adam says, I took the IDLE Foundation last February. Currently, they're studying for the IDLE Specialist, Create, Deliver, and Support. What type of analyst would this certification help me get? Or what type of job would this help me get?
Jason, can I touch on that previous question before we continue?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. If you're really interested in doing or listening to case studies, I love the podcast Darknet Diaries. There's over 100 episodes, maybe even 200 at this point. But basically, the journalist behind that podcast goes and breaks down famous cyber attacks, anywhere from Target to Stuxnet, anything you can imagine. He has talked about it. So shout out Darknet Diaries podcast. It's awesome. Also, off the top of my head, the Recorded Future podcast also has like a daily update on different malware that's coming out. So look up Recorded Future. It's an open source intelligence company. They have really great products, and take a look. Over.
Over, yes. You're not military. You wouldn't know I stole that guy from the military a year ago, would you?
Yeah. Who knows? Ooh.
So the next question we were about to answer was on IDLE. I think it was up a little bit further. Yeah, there we go. So Adam had said he had just taken the IDLE Foundation last February and passed. Currently, they're studying for the Create, Deliver, and Support exam, which is the next level up. What kind of a job would this help you get? So when you're talking about IDLE Foundation, this is one that a lot of people don't realize is actually really important in the cybersecurity world as well as in the IT service management world. If you're having trouble breaking into the cybersecurity world and you have your Security Plus and you have your CISA Plus and people are still not giving you the time of day, go take IDLE 4 Foundation, and next week people will start calling you. I don't know why it is. Well, actually I do, but it's one of those things that like amazes people because like IDLE, that's like the entry level easy button. Like honestly, this course is an 8-hour course. You could finish it over the weekend and pass on Monday. It's not that hard to do. And the reason why employers like it is because it talks about processes and procedures and frameworks and how all the stuff works together. And every Fortune 100 company uses IDLE. Most Fortune 500 companies use IDLE. And so when they see IDLE Foundation on your resume, in addition to Security Plus and CISA, they go, hey, this person understands that the frontline incident responders and problem managers are having to deal with this, and you are there to support as cybersecurity and how you fit into the big organization. So that didn't answer the question, but it's something for you guys to know, especially those who are interested in cybersecurity. That being said, Create, Deliver, and Support. If you're a cybersecurity person, you probably don't need that one. That's the higher level of IDLE. It's the next level up. And that one is essentially used for people who are going to run help desks, run problem management, run incident management, and run the SLAs and things like that for an organization. So if you work for a managed service provider, you work for a help desk environment, and you want to be the supervisor or the manager over that area, that's where create, deliver, and support really comes into play. Some of the other idle ones they have, there's another one called direct, plan, and improve. That's for managers and leadership. That one's really popular, especially for those who are executives and managers. Idle leader is at the executive level. When you start dealing with high velocity IT, that's another one. That's talking about how do you do all this cloud services that are scalable and run something like a Netflix if you want to do that for your organization. And the final one they have that we cover is drive stakeholder value, which is really about the sales process and how you onboard customers and offboard customers. Again, talking to MSPs and managed service provider professionals, and how you do that business to business negotiation and contracting. And that's all done under the Axelos certification line with the IDLE certifications, and their sister certifications are the project management certifications with Prince 2 and Prince 2 Agile. All right. I'll let you grab another question. This one for Reed, I think. Let's see. Yep.
I was looking at that one right at the top. So I have to answer a question with a question. Are you working on foundation or practitioner? Because my approaches would be slightly different. I guess I'll answer both. So the first time I took foundation, I actually did not pass, and it's because I looked at that. I think the pass rate is 55%, right, Jason?
Yep, 55.
And I was like, 60 questions, 60 minutes. Like, no worry, I'm just gonna peel through this book. What really surprised me is it's almost as much an English syntax and grammar test compared to actually understanding the definitions. So as long as you're really comfortable with the definitional knowledge of the principles, themes, and processes, you should be able to carry through. I think I was averaging about 70% on our practice tests before I went and actually took the exam and passed. In terms of the practitioner exam, just be comfortable with our practice exams yet again, but understand that the preparation of, yet again, I don't know if you have an electronic PDF or a physical hard copy book, but I prefer the hard copy book. I made sure that I had bookmarks all throughout my book, so I would practice flipping through it because you're allowed to have the book on the exam. And by the time I did that, I felt very comfortable and passed on my first attempt. But Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so on the practitioner side, they do give you, it's an open book exam, as Reed said. You do get an ebook that you can use during the exam that does pop up. I in the chat that Rob, who asked the question, said it was foundation. So I will tell you, if you're getting 65% on, you must be on our practice exams, because if you're getting 65 in the real thing, you would have passed and it wouldn't have mattered, right?
Yeah.
For us, we set the pass bar at 70% on our practice exams, because some students do better or worse, and generally it's about a 10% variation. And so we know if you're hitting 70%, you're going to pass. If you're hitting 65, you're kind of in that bubble where you could have a good day or a bad day, and it's probably like a coin toss, right? So what I would recommend is, as you're looking at the 65 that you have, I would look at the questions you missed, go back and read the explanations. So all of our practice exams, we spend a lot of time not just telling you that the answer is B, but the answer is B because of this, and the answer why A and B and C and D are not this, are this, this, and this. And we tell you why the right answer is right and the wrong answer is wrong. Spend some time going through those, because that will help you understand why the question is right. As Reed said, for foundation, it's a lot of definitions, and I think you're probably getting those probably right with no problem. The one that most people struggle with is when they start asking you to apply it to different things. So when you get to the seven processes at the end, that's where a lot of students get messed up. And I would say my biggest piece of advice when we talk about Prince 2 is think about it in terms of who is doing it and what level are we talking. Are we talking managing? That's going to be your board of directors, right? That's going to be your project board, your senior supplier, your senior user, and your executive. If you talk about, that's directing. If you're talking about managing, you're talking about project manager. If you're talking about delivering, that's your team members who are doing it, and usually team leads, and that's stages and project plans. And so knowing that in that one chart, if you look at the last section of the course, we have that one video where we kind of do the overview and talk about the 7 steps and where they fit from the 50,000 foot view. Go over that a couple of times. Once you get that down, it's going to make the whole test so much easier for you, because that's where the majority of questions I see students missing are when they say, this is happening, who's responsible for it? And they think it's the project manager, but it's not. It's the project board of the executive, because it's a directing decision, not a managing decision. And so making sure you understand those key words, directing, managing, and delivery is important because that tells you who's doing it and which stage you're in.
I think that video, Jason, that you're referencing is putting it all together
Yes.
at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
and
going to go through like a nice 5-minute overview of here's where all the pieces are, and it's in the last section of the course. So definitely check that out. The other thing I would say is if you haven't watched the video in the last 30 days, all the videos were replaced in the last 30 days with the new version that Reed and I just did. We started with my version and we made it better. So it is a much better version than the original one that I had. So, and again, it's not a super long course. I think that one's like 4 hours or 5 hours of video, and practitioner is somewhere between 5 and 10 hours. So it's fairly short. And really the big difference between foundation and practitioner is more application, no definitions, and it's an open book exam, which is why there's no definitions. And foundation is very much, can you remember definitions? Can you answer which process you're in and who's doing it and who's responsible and that kind of stuff. Christina, you've got another question. All right. This one comes from LinkedIn. Hey, Jason, I already have Sec Plus. Should I focus on CISM or SSCP? So I'm going to take this one because we're talking cybersecurity again. Sorry, Reed. Yeah. So after Security Plus, I honestly would not bother with SSCP unless you're in a region where people are asking for it. And there's not very many regions that are asking for SSCP. It is not a big seller. That's under ISC Squared's brand, which is who does CISSP and Certified in Cyber. Their path goes CC, SSCP, CCSP, and then CISP. And really, CISP is like 90% of their sales. Like pretty much everyone wants CISP from IC Squared, and most of their products really don't have a lot of traction. So if you have Security Plus, that's considered equivalent to SSCP, and most companies will ask for this or that, but not both. So really, I don't think you need to get your SSCP unless you have your heart set on one company and you're looking, and they keep saying in their job postings, must have SSCP. The second part of that question was SSCP, and the other one you asked about was, I forgot. Hold on, she's bringing it back up for me. Maybe. CISM, yes, yes, CISM. That would be a good one. No, you have to be aware that CISM and CISP, both of them are considered management certifications, and they both have an experience requirement. I believe for both of them it's 5 years. I know for a fact it's 5 years on CISSP, and it's either 4 or 5 years on CISM. I think it's 5 years as well. That one is done by ISACA, ASACA, and you can go to isaka.org to see information about CISM. And again, if you're looking for a good course on that, I'm again going to recommend Thor Teaches because he is the CC, CISP, and CISM guy. So thorteaches.com is where I would send you for that. But yeah, after Security Plus, if you want to go management, CISM, if you want to stay technical, you either want to go CYSA Plus if you want to be an analyst, or you want to be pen test if you want to be an attacker. Those are kind of the 3 ways I see in cybersecurity after Security Plus of where you want to go. All right, next question. All right. Hi, Jason and Reed. Zeal says they passed Security Plus a couple weeks ago, but given how long it took them to study, they'd rather wait for the new CYSA in May. Any idea how long an update to the course might take? Oh, well, I can answer that one. We're going to find some
wait, before you start, congratulations on passing Security Plus. That's awesome, man.
Good job. Thanks, Reed. Yeah.
Jason.
So normally it takes us a little while to do an update. That being said, CompT and I are very close, and they told me it was coming out 9 months ahead of time. And I got the objectives about 2 months ago. So I've already gone through. We've already refilmed the entire course. We already have edited the whole course, and it's in our quality assurance team right now. It's almost 400 videos. It's about 35 to 40 hours. It's a long, long course. That being said, it's a great course. We added more labs. We added more demos. We added new areas that were not covered in version 2, and we were able to carry forward a lot of stuff from version 2 into version 3 that is overlapped. So the answer to your question is, as soon as CompTIA releases it, we're going to be there. We are probably going to be releasing about 3 weeks before CompTIA does. That way people who want to get CYSA 3 can start on the course and be ready to go into it. At this point, the videos are all done. The quizzes are all done and the labs are all done. The only part I haven't finished yet is doing the new practice exams. A lot of the stuff from version 2 is still going to be in version 3, but I have to go through every single question I have, which is about 700 questions, verify are they still relevant for version 3 and what's new in version 3, and we need to write a couple hundred questions to cover those. So the answer is yes. When it comes out in May, we are prepared to be there on day 1, so you won't have to wait. The other one that people have been asking me about is Security Plus. In case you haven't heard, Security Plus is coming out in October, November, sometime in Q4 of this year is the new version, the 701. And we will be out when that comes out in October, November as well with the same thing. CompTIA is one of our best partners. So when they put out a new course, we tend to be right there with them. And speaking of CompTIA, Reed, what are you working on right now?
I'm actually working on the Project Plus course. So since coming to Dion Training, I've worked on 2 courses thus far. So first off, I started with Data Plus, and then I moved on to Prince 2. Now I am currently working on the Project Plus certification. So
yep.
Stay tuned.
So that was one. We've had a lot of students, especially those who go to Western Governors, who've been asking for Project Plus because I know it's part of your degree path, and there's not a lot of great training out there for it. So we have been writing the course for Project Plus version 5. We are about halfway through writing it, and then we begin filming in probably about 2 weeks. And it usually takes us about a month to a month and a half from the time we film to get it edited and out. And again, same thing. We do the video, then we do the practice exam. So the video and the first practice exam will come out, and then a couple weeks later, the 6th practice exam course will also come out. So keep an eye out for that. So the question, Bob, Project Plus after Prince 2 Foundation. So it depends on you and where you're located, right? If you're over in Europe, after Prince 2 Foundation, I would go to Prince 2 Practitioner. If you're here in the States, you can do either Project Plus or Prince 2 Practitioner, or you can move into something like PMP. PMP does have a 2-year requirement of experience, so you have to show that you had 4,000 hours of project management experience to become PMP certified and pass the exam. Similar to how CISP says you have to have 5 years plus passing the exam. So, you will see that most companies don't really ask for Project Plus. The reason that we are doing it is because some people who want to get into project management want Project Plus because they already have cybersecurity and now they're been tasked with being a project manager and they don't know what to do, right? And Project Plus doesn't have an experience requirement, so anybody can get certified if you can pass the exam. Also, a lot of colleges like Western Governors, University of Maryland Global Campus, and others do have Project Plus as part of their courses, and a lot of those students have been asking us for it. So that's why we added that. I will say, if you're looking to become a project manager, getting your Project Plus is probably not going to get you a job. But going through Project Plus will introduce you to all the information about Prince 2 and PMP, so you understand how these things work, you understand how to run a project, and you can be a more effective project manager. But it's not going to be like, hey, you got your Prince 2, let me give you a $100,000 a year job as a project manager. If you get your PMP, that's the reality. If you get your Project Plus, not so much. So just want to set expectations there. So it's a good cert to get, but it's not necessarily going to be directly tying to a job like some of the other things we teach. All right, Christina's got another question for us. The name of the person I recommended for CISP, CISM, and CC, Certified in Cyber. It is Thor Peterson, and he is at thorteaches.com, or you can get it on Udemy. But if you go to his website, it's actually a little bit cheaper. And even if you get it, the Udemy version through his website, it's usually cheaper than what Udemy's selling it for. So thorteaches.com. He's a good friend of mine, and he's also just does really, really good work. So that's why I always recommend him. All right, next question. This one's for Reed. So Reed, for the intelligence field, do you recommend the Security Plus and Data Plus, or is there a better combination? And I guess really the big question here is, in the intelligence field, do people care about certifications, Reed?
So it really depends on where you go. If you're going to work signals intelligence, like my background, then yeah, they really do care about Security Plus. They care about Network Plus as well, because guess what? If you need to track someone or their cell phone or their IP address or email, whatever it is, like knowing how the infrastructure of technology really, really assists in that. However, if you want to get into intelligence, it's so broad, right? Like you can do things with overhead, persistent, infrared. You can do things with human intelligence. You can do things with all different kinds. Even nuclear, where you're like looking at material science and like trying to figure out particulates in the air of nuclear explosions. So it's like, if you're really trying to focus in on cybersecurity with the intelligence aspect, I think Security Plus and Data Plus is an outstanding combination. In terms of actual intelligence tradecraft, I would say Data Plus is fantastic because there's a lot of information about data visualization, for example. And as a former professional military briefer, the first thing they teach you in intel school is that if you're talking to a Flagstaff officer, like a general, include as many graphics as possible because you want to keep people entertained. Yeah, it's like, hey, so I have this PowerPoint, and here's an F-16 flying into the target zone for the sortie. It's like, I don't know what this has to do with the brief, but it looks good. So data plus all the way. And also just, understanding the basic mechanics of data analysis is super valuable. For example, before I got out of the military, the Air Force was actually moving the 14 November career field. So all source intelligence analysis, part of the new career field is actually being technologically literate, because we have a lot of people who are soft sciences or liberal arts in nature or background. So yet again, language guy. So I didn't have any hard technical skills. And when I got to my duty assignment, I was originally attached to the 318th Cyber Operations Group. And so I was hanging out with a bunch of 17 Sierras who are offensive cyber folks. And I didn't have the technical chops to actually communicate with them. So if you are interested in cyber intelligence, Security Plus is a fantastic opportunity. Data Plus is fantastic. And also, if you're more interested in, I'll say networking, then Network Plus is also great. All three of those are fantastic.
And the only other one that I would recommend there is, Security Plus is going to teach you all the foundation so you can speak tech and be able to be conversant in all the language and be able to talk with the technical folks. But if you actually want to learn open source intelligence, how do you do Google dorking, all that kind of stuff, that's actually covered in CYSA, more so in version 2 than version 3. Version 3 has been pulling back on some of that, but in version 2, there was a whole section. I think we had 1 or 2 sections in our course because it was such a big concept about talking about the cyber kill chain and using Lockheed Martin, and talking about the attack framework, and talking about how to do open source intelligence and find all this information about bad guys and imagery, and all that kind of stuff was actually covered in that because the DoD had a hand in doing the outlines and the objectives of the CompTIA CYSA, and they saw that as being valuable, and so a lot of people needed that. The other piece of that is, from a Security Plus perspective, if you are in a job that's working for the DoD or a DoD contractor and they classify it as a cyber or cyber adjacent job, even if it's intelligence, you are going to be required to get your Security Plus to be able to hold that position within 6 months of getting hired. And so normally they want you to have it before they hire you as well. So that's the other place you'll see that comes up quite a bit.
DoD 8570.
Gotta love it, right? I mean, it tells you exactly what you need to do. All right. Dutch asks, I've been working with Linux for close to 8 years, currently a Linux system admin, cloud-based systems. I've really bad imposter syndrome. I'm curious what certificates are good for you to acquire. So you didn't say where you want to go, but I'm guessing you're trying to get into cybersecurity. You already have the background that would be necessary to do that. Being a Linux system admin, you've got 8 years of experience. It's all going to be about how you write that on your resume to show people you know what you're talking about. And then if you want to be able to get the certifications are really for you, just going to be the check in the block to match up with what the employers are asking for. So as you look in your area, because again, I don't know where you're located in the world, but go on LinkedIn, go on Monster, go on Dice, look at the jobs in your area, go look at the first 10 to 15 that you find and take notes. What are they asking for? Are they asking for Security Plus, CISA, pen tests, CYSA, CISP, whatever it is? Make a list, make a little check, and just put down little marks every time you see it. And then after you go through 20 or 30 of these, you're going to be able to say, oh, you know what? Out of these 30, 20 of them wanted Security Plus, 3 wanted CEH, 2 wanted CYSA, whatever it is. And that's what you want to go get, because the most people are asking for this thing. You get that thing, plus your years of experience you already have. Rewrite your resume, focusing on the things you've done in cyber, because as a Linux system administrator, you're already doing cybersecurity. I guarantee it. You're setting up password policies. You're resetting user accounts. You're setting up permissions and ACLs. You're doing firewalls, on the system level. You're doing antivirus. All that stuff you're doing. You're patching. You're upgrading. Your firmware updates. All of that is considered cybersecurity. It's just how you write it on your resume to show you know what you're talking about. And again, each resume you put out is going to be based on the job you're applying for. So you kind of want to have a base resume, and then you can add or remove pieces as needed based on the jobs you're applying for, and that'll help you get through those filters faster. So it does sound to me like you have imposter syndrome. If you have 8 years of experience already as a Linux admin, you should have no problem getting a job as a cybersecurity analyst or a junior pen tester, because knowing Linux is so critical to be able to do those 2 jobs. All right, next one. All right, this one I'm going to throw over to Reed as well, because it's talking about intelligence. Is threat intelligence one of the areas in cybersecurity that might require less programming skills? I'm not a big fan of coding, but Intel sounds pretty interesting. What do you think, Reed, as a former intelligence guy? Is important?
So just coming from the intelligence background, right? So I had mentioned that I didn't have the technical chops when I originally got to my first duty station. So intel school for the Air Force is 6 months, give or take. So I went down to Texas, went up to Fort Meade, and then went back down to Texas for another 5 weeks. So if you can be comfortable with like the diamond model and like understanding really basic security concepts, you can pretty much work as an intelligence briefer based on your ability to analyze data and put the puzzle pieces together and deliver that. I would say a really valuable skill, regardless of whether you're in IT or whatever other career field, being able to communicate with people and be humble enough to ask questions when you need to get information is probably one of the most valuable skills just in general professional life. To go a little bit further, if you are looking for a threat intelligence position, we've already hammered this home. Look at the job requirements and the job tasks that you might be required to actually do. I've looked at some of those positions before, specifically for like open source intelligence, and a lot of it does require a bachelor's in computer science, because oftentimes when you're looking at malware and trying to break it down and analyze where it comes from, if you're not comfortable looking at a debugger and actually breaking the code down for C++ or Python or JavaScript for like your open web app attacks, like you're going to be kind of hamstrung, because a lot of people, what is it? FireEye is one of the largest companies, correct?
Yep.
All of those other large threat intelligence companies, you're going to have those technical chops, and often it does tie directly into being comfortable with a coding background. However, if you go on to Code Academy and you start creating your own portfolio and say, hey, look, like I'm not the biggest fan of coding, I'm more of a soft skills person, then you might be able to market yourself a little bit better. But yet again, it all comes back to your interests and building up your resume. Be that motivated self-starter who can create their own portfolio and then sell themselves to, not like the devil on your shoulder, sell yourself like, give your soul up, but like be aware of what they're looking for and then market yourself appropriately.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say is it also depends on where you want to work, right? So I used to work at the National Security Agency, at the NSA up in Fort Meade, and I will tell you they work as teams. So not every intel analyst knew how to program. In fact, I would say it was probably pretty rare that an intel analyst actually could program. And so what happened a lot of times is they would pair up somebody like me who could program with somebody like Reed who knew intelligence, and we would work together. Now, ultimately, they would love it if we could combine the two of us and we had the brain meld, and you have somebody who knows the intel and knows the programming, and that's going to be at a higher level. So what I saw a lot of was we would have a team of people, and there might be like 4 entry-level guys and gals, then like 1 or 2 mid-level, and then 1 senior. And the senior person may have known all the code and everything else. But, as the entry-level folks, they might say, hey, this is outside my scope. I can read a basic script, but this one's really confusing because we have to go down the assembly language to get this one. They would send that up to the senior person. And that way we can triage it and get it to where we need to be. Before we take the next question, I did see a couple of things I wanted to address real quick. Somebody had asked about GSEC, and then the other question I saw quite a few people asking about was, should I take the exam or should I wait for it when there's a changeover like CISA and Security Plus? So let me answer that one first. A lot of people ask me, new versions coming out. CISA Plus version 3 is coming out in May of 2023. Security Plus is coming out sometime late 2023. Should I stop my studying and wait till the new exam? The answer is no, you shouldn't. And the reason for that is twofold, right? One is that every time CompTIA releases a new exam, they have an overlap period of about 6 months. So when CISA comes out in May, we start here, right, at May of 23, they're not going to retire the version 2 until sometime in like October or November. So you've got time to finish your studies, go take the exam, and still get certified. Regardless of whether you pass version 2 or version 3, you're going to get the exact same certificate that says CYSA Plus CE. No one's going to know whether you had the version 2 or version 3, so it does not matter. The other thing I would tell you is that when you're looking at these overlap periods, if you're just starting now and you're like, hey, it's right now as we're filming this and we're talking to you live, it is the end of February 2023. If you think you're ready to start CISA, start it now, go with version 2, you're fine. If you're like, I'm not going to be able to start until May 1st, then you might say, you know what, I'm going to wait till the end of May and start because that's when the new version comes out. Why not just wait for the new one? But if you're like, hey, I'm ready to start now, don't wait 3 months just so you can say, I got the new version. Nobody cares. You're certified, doesn't matter what version, right? So that's that piece of it. The other question I had here was about GSEC, GSEC, which if those of you don't know, that is a SANS course. With SANS, they have some of the best training in the world. They really do. That being said, stupid expensive. I think their courses now are about $8,000. It's usually a 2 to 5 day course and an exam at the end. I will tell you, I personally do not know a single person who takes a SANS course unless their employer pays for it, because they are so stupid expensive, right? I think, Reed, you may have gone through one or two when you were
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so actually, when I also originally got to the NSA, I was put through the SANS Security 487 course down in Crystal City in DC. And so I did their open security course, phenomenal training, absolutely phenomenal. After, out of the 20 or 30 people that were in the room, most were federal employees, if not all. And the people who were not federal employees were volunteering so that they could take the course for free.
Yeah. So I see a lot of that with SANS. I will tell you, John Strand, he was on our episode 61 of Your Cyberpath. And if you want to listen to a great discussion with him, go to yourcyberpath.com/61. John Strand is a former SANS instructor. And he got really fed up with the fact that they have the best training, but they are stupid expensive. And he also owns Black Hills Security, which is a penetration testing firm. He then started a company called Anti-Siphon Training, which, don't ask me to spell it because it's really hard. But if you go to the podcast episode, yourcyberpath.com/61, there's a link to Anti-Siphon Training. And his training is based on SANS because he trained for them for 10, 15, 20 years. And he started this training company, and they are very focused on hands-on skills. So he has a course that's called like Intro to SOC Analyst, and it's like a 40-hour course or something like that. When you leave that course, you know how to be an analyst. It's completely different than any of the certifications you would take with CompTIA or ITIL or Prince2 or any of the stuff that I teach, which is very heavily in theory. This stuff is completely hands-on, and when you have that on your resume, like, employers know about it. They understand what that is. Thank you. Somebody put it in the notes there. Anti-Siphon, ANTISIPHON, I think is how it's spelled. But you can check that out as well. And listen to that interview. You'll love it. But his stuff is all skills-based training, and at the end of doing it, you get a certification saying you are now certified anti-siphon whatever. Honestly, the certification is not as valuable as the fact that you went through that training, and employers do know about it. So that is one I would definitely recommend checking out. Very hands-on, lots of labs, lots of log analysis, and all that kind of good stuff. And the really cool thing about anti-siphon is, unlike the $8,000 SANS training, they are a pay-what-you-can model. Now, what that means is that some people, like Reed, who's rich, he can pay, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, right? But if you don't have a lot of money because you're, living in, I don't know, like, Africa or something, right? Or some low income place, you could pay $5 or $10, and that's totally cool. But the way they do it is this big, massive environment with, 3, 4, 5,000 people, or whatever, show up. And so if everybody pays $5, they can afford to pay these really good instructors what they need, so they can provide you with really great training. So it's definitely a really, really good thing for you guys to check out. Anti-Siphon Training. Can't recommend them enough. They've just got really, really good quality stuff. So definitely check them out. All right. I think we got a couple more questions because we got about 20 more minutes. So, all right. Which cert is preferred for a SOC analyst? I'm going to let Reed answer this one, but then I'll jump into.
So I know we've already hammered home on Security Plus and how the log analysis kind of, like, Security Plus will introduce you to log analysis. CYSA is really the gold standard. I have some friends over at DISA, the Defense Information Systems Agency, and that is really what they aim their analysts towards, to my knowledge. And then after that, CISSP.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. For starting out, it's going to be Security Plus and CISA. Those are kind of the two big ones. Once you get 5 years of experience, CISSP is another one. The other thing I see some places, especially in the commercial sector, is that anti-siphon training with the SOC analyst certification that they have. I will tell you, the DoD doesn't recognize it. So if you're trying to get a government job, you really need to stay with CYSA Plus because that's what they recognize. You should still go through the anti-siphon training because it's awesome and it'll make you a better analyst, but they won't recognize that because it's not in the 8570 requirements.
Olson, some other thing. I don't know if people are still asking for this because this information might be a little bit dated, like 4 or 5 years old, but vendor-specific training. I know that Splunk was very popular for a long time. That could also aid your search in a job.
Yeah, so vendor-specific training is really good if you know what company you're going for. The only problem with it is if you're applying to a company, for instance, I saw this all the time with network certifications, and somebody asked earlier about Network Plus. I would not get Network Plus if you're trying to be a cybersecurity analyst. No one's going to care that you have Network Plus, but you still need to go through the training of Network Plus to get the information, because if you can't do subnetting and you don't know what an IP version 4 versus version 6 is and all that kind of stuff, you're going to be lost when you get to Security Plus or CYSA Plus. So it's valuable information, but you don't necessarily need the certification to say, I'm Network Plus certified, because honestly, the gold standard in that world is CCNA, which is Cisco Certified Networking Associate. But that only works if the company uses Cisco devices. And these days, most people are using a lot more cloud-based infrastructure and virtual switches. And so it might be a Brocade switch, it might be an Accolade switch, it might be an HP switch or a Juniper switch or a CCNA or a Cisco switch. If you have CCNA, they're going to go, well, you don't have Juniper, so we don't like you, right? So if you know what company you're going for and they're using Splunk, get a Splunk cert, right? If you don't know what company you're going for, CYSA is really good because it's this very generic overview of all systems, not a single system, because there are certifications for QRadar, and there's certifications for OpenVOS, and there's certifications for every different tool out there. But again, do you need 20 different certifications? Not necessarily. If you get some of these vendor neutral ones, they can cover a lot of ground for you.
Oh, sorry. And if I could add one more thing,
Yeah.
if you want to be a really good defender, learn how to attack. So Pen Test Plus, of course, but OSCP, Offensive Security Certified Practitioner, it is a 24-hour exam with a capture the flag event as your evaluation. And then afterwards, you have to write your own pen testing report. It'll introduce you to all different kinds of tools, and it is fantastic training. I've got to talk to some of the OSCP folks, offensive security people out in Maryland, and they're a cool group. So great training as well.
Yeah, another one that's not as popular as Pentest Plus or CEH or OSCP is EJPT. And I've actually been talking with them to bring them on the podcast to learn more about their certification and how they do it. But it is, again, another very hands-on cert, capture the style for junior penetration testers. And that's one of the entry-level certs that a lot of people are looking for too. Christina, next question. All right. MB says, hi, Jason. How does one pivot into being an RMF security assessor or an ISSO, which means Information Systems Security Officer, with a Security Plus certification, especially with no previous experience or security clearance and public trust? So I will tell you, you mentioned RMF, and that's kind of the key word in your question. RMF is the Risk Management Framework. And for those who don't know it, I do have a course on this. It's on Udemy. You can find it at diontraining.com/Udemy, and you'll see my RMF courses listed there. It's one that I did with Kip Boyle, who's my partner at Your Cyber Path. We did two courses. One was for the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, and we did one for the NIST RMF, which is the Risk Management Framework. Now, the Risk Management Framework is awesome, but I will tell you, it is almost exclusively, probably 90% plus, used by the government contractors, and the military. So when I hear RMF, I'm thinking you want to work for DISA, you want to work for DOD, you want to work for a government contractor, right? And again, ISSO, that's another thing that led me to realize you're talking military contracting or military government service here. So that being said, how do you get into that world? Well, the first thing you need is Security Plus, which is what you've done. And so that's good. You've got that. Your biggest barrier to entry now is actually the second piece, and it's not the experience part, it's the security clearance part. So most of these jobs, because they're military, they don't require just a public trust, but they're going to require a secret clearance or a top secret clearance, depending on the systems you're going to be a risk assessor on. And so, the part is getting that clearance if you're not already in the government, because a contractor doesn't want to give you a clearance. Well, it's not they don't want to, they can't give you a clearance. They can only support your clearance by having you go through the process, but they can only do that after they've hired you. So let's use the example of Dion Training. Let's say I was going to make a course for the government and they said, hey, all your instructors have to have a TS clearance, a top secret clearance to be able to do this. Well, for me, it's a lot easier to hire somebody like Reed, who just came out of the military, who already has a clearance, even if he doesn't know how to do the job, because I can train him how to do that job in the next 2 to 3 months and then put him to work and get money off of him, right? But if he doesn't, and you could have all the experience in the world, but no clearance, for me, I actually probably would still hire Reed, who doesn't have the experience, right? And the reason is, it takes anywhere from 3 months to 18 months to get a top secret clearance. And all that time, I have to pay him and have him on payroll while I put in his clearance and wait for the government to approve it or disapprove it. So I could have hired him, paid him for 18 months, and they go, you know what? Reed spent a year in China. We don't trust him. Nope, no clearance for Reed, right? And I've seen stuff like that happen, right? Where, or you've got, you're married to a foreign national. I had a friend who was married to a Russian woman, and they denied his clearance because he was married to a Russian woman. And they said, well, we think that you have split loyalties and you may not be loyal to the US because you're married to a Russian. If we get into a war with Russia, whose side are you going to be on, right? And so those are the things that really make it a struggle. to break into this world when you don't have a clearance. So my best piece of advice for you, if that's the world you want to go into, is to get a job, whatever job it is, that requires a security clearance, and somebody will sponsor you. When I used to teach up in Maryland, I was really close to, I was teaching at Anne Arundel Community College, which is 20 minutes from the NSA. And what my students would do is they would get jobs as janitors at the NSA or cafeteria workers at the NSA, because those folks still need a clearance. Because if you're a janitor and you're going in a top secret space to shred the material, guess what? You have to have a top secret clearance. So they would work for $15 or $20 an hour in their nights and weekends while they were in college, got a paycheck, and they got a top secret clearance. So after they finished their year of training, they now had their A+, their Security Plus, and their CCNA. Guess what? Every single one of them got hired like that because they had that plus the security clearance. And then we'll train you to do the rest of the jobs, right? So I'm not saying that nobody will hire you without a clearance, but I will say it is much, much more difficult because they're afraid of that long clearance process. The only way to circumvent that is to start out on the government side, because the government, those of you who are Americans, your dollars at work, but the government doesn't think about it in terms of dollars and cents. So they will hire who they think is the best person or the most motivated person or the right qualifications and certifications. And then they will put you in a non-clear job while they go for your application process. And they're paying you and you're doing your work. They might put you through additional training and all that stuff. And then when your clearance comes back, they say, okay, you now have a clearance. Now we're going to put you in the job you were hired for. And now you can start working. So I would say if you have a college degree, you may look at some of the internship programs that are available. The one thing you really have working for you in this is that a lot of people don't like working with RMF. A lot of people aren't interested in being an RMF auditor or assessor or an ISSO. So there's a lot less people asking for those jobs than for red team and pen testing jobs or for CYSA and SOC analyst jobs. So there's less competition, but you're still kind of going in an uphill battle here because you don't have a clearance yet. All right, next question. I know I went on the diatribe for that one, so we'll see if Reed can take this one. All right, Paradox Matrix asks, what bug bounty course or courses do you recommend as a complete beginner, either paid or free, YouTube or other platforms? Any suggestions you have, and then I'll jump in, Reed.
Okay, so the first thing I would do if you're going after bug bounties, I would probably start with looking at the OWASP website, Open Web Application Security Project. I know that they'll probably have much better references for source material than I know off the top of my head. The next thing I would do is I would get familiar with Kali Linux and do any kind of training with Kali Linux. It's an open source platform for penetration testing. And then more specifically, I would learn how to use Metasploit. And from Metasploit, then I'd learn all the tips and tricks from there. And so if you hit OWASP, get familiar with Kali Linux, and then get really good at Metasploit, you'll probably start getting some bug bounties.
Yep, I think that's a great suggestion. OWASP.org is the website. That is the open source Web Application Security Project. It is an awesome resource. And as you go through Security Plus and Pentest Plus and CYSA Plus and CAS Plus, we do talk about the OWASP Top 10, which are the 10 most dangerous things that websites do that they shouldn't do. And this is why most websites get hacked. And you can go through that list, and it changes every 3 or 4 years. And it's all the stuff you'd expect: SQL injections, weak passwords, weak authentication, cross-site scripting, all that kind of stuff. And in each of those 10, you can click on it, and it will go through examples of them, coding for them, what it looks like, how to fix it, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really good resource. It's not a course, but it is really good information. If you're looking for actually more guided courses, there's a couple of people I would recommend you check out. One is if you go on Udemy and look for a guy named Zaid, Z-A-I-D. I can never remember his last name, but if you type in, she's putting it in chat right now because she actually looked up for the last time for me, Zaid Sahib. He does an awesome job, and he's very hands-on with all of his hacking courses, and he does have a bug bounty course. I remember him doing that. In fact, he also started a bug bounty platform where you can actually register there and become a bug bounty person. He's got a bunch of organizations that are asking for people to come bug bounty their site and find things. And if you find it, you get paid for those. So he's a good one to look at. The other one that I would look at is stationx.net. Station, the letter X.net. It's run by Nathan House, which is another Udemy instructor that they went off and created his own platform. And the reason I recommend stationx.net is that he has a lifetime membership. I think it's either a yearly or a lifetime. And I think it's like $100 to $150. And you get access to all of his courses, including ones he has from other instructors as well. In fact, I used to partner with him before Udemy started an exclusivity thing with them. And so my old, Security Plus version course and my CISA version 1 course and my Pentest version 1 course are still on his platform. And you can get those all for free as part of your membership there. But his courses are all very, very hands-on. And he has like a 4-hour course on Nmap. He's got an 8-hour course on Metasploit. He's got one just on bug bounties, and he's got one on how to do Python programming and Java programming and all that kind of stuff. So definitely check out stationx.net. Great site and lots of great content there that'll help you with your bug bounty research and getting into that field. All right, next question. All right, Alex says, as somebody who has a genuine interest in technology, I've been studying for the A+ Core 1, which for those who don't know is hardware primarily. So we're talking about, hardware, mobile devices, and stuff like that. The end goal is landing a job in cybersecurity. What would you recommend, going right for Security Plus or something else? Okay, so you're doing A+ Core 1. To pass A+, you do need Core 1 and Core 2, and I would go take both those exams. The reason for that is, one, is it's going to give you experience in taking exams the way CompTIA words things, which is going to be really valuable as you go into higher levels like Security Plus, CISA Plus, and Pentest Plus. I would do A+ Core 1, which is hardware, A+ Core 2, which is software, and that's going to give you a really good understanding of pretty much what is technology as you just started out. Then I would take the Network Plus course. It's up to you whether or not you want to take the exam. Honestly, Network Plus, out of the A+, Net Plus, Security Plus, is the least important certification-wise, but the information you learn in Network Plus is so darn valuable. If nothing else, go get my course on Udemy. It's like $10 usually. Just go to deontraining.com/Udemy. If you're not planning on taking the exam, just go through the course, watch the videos, do the labs that we have in there, follow along, and that will make sure that you understand networking. Because if you don't understand networks, when you get to Security Plus and you get to CISA, you're going to be a horrible cybersecurity analyst. You're not going to be able to do anything. Because 99% of what you're going to do as a cybersecurity analyst is looking at network traffic and logs and packet captures and all that stuff. So understanding that from Network Plus is going to be critical. Then I want you to do Security Plus. Once you have your A+, you've gone through Network Plus, whether you took it or not, and then you get your Security Plus, you now have a good foundation to go get an entry-level job in the cybersecurity industry. And as you're going along this path, once you get your A+, if you don't have a job already, go get a job as a help desk person, right? Because that'll start your clock. And when you do your resume, they're going to say, oh, you worked as a system administrator for a year, or you worked in the help desk for a year, or field services for a year, or whatever those things are. And that's going to start your clock counting, because there's no way to change the amount of time it takes to get 2 years of experience, except to get 2 years of experience. And the faster you can start that clock, the faster you can start getting that experience counter going. So I would definitely look at that. And then once you get Security Plus, as you want to move up, then go to CISA. If you want to move up again, you go to CAS Plus or CISP. And as you keep moving, basically the next 5 years of your life is A+, Part 1 and Part 2, Network Plus, Security Plus, CISA. And that should probably take you about 2 years, probably, a year to 2 years, depending on how aggressive you're going after it. At the same time, I want you to get a job in technology, whatever that is. Because at least then you have stuff on your resume that uses keywords that can then be picked up. Whereas if you just go, I'm going to go study for a year and then go try to get a job, you now again have a bunch of certs with no experience, and that's going to make it hard to get a job. Reed, anything to add to that?
You don't want to be a paper tiger. And by that, I mean what Jason just said. If you have a ton of different certifications but no experience, you might actually become overqualified for the position that you're looking for. You don't need the CISSP in order to be a help desk technician. So, get your A+, get the Core 1, get the Core 2. And specifically, you were mentioning about the progression of all of your certifications. So I actually started with Security Plus when I actually went on my CompTIA journey. And what I realized quickly is that I didn't have the technical expertise, the technical chops to actually defend the server, defend the network, because how are you going to defend a server if you don't necessarily know or understand what it is or what it does? So I started with Network Plus, and it was definitely like drinking through a fire hose. There's probably 500 acronyms. I know someone earlier in the chat had said, why does cybersecurity have so many acronyms? I don't know. I wish it had less. It would be a lot easier for people to jump into the community. But at least for me, I went directly in with Net Plus because it tied directly into the work I was doing as an analyst. And I went from there. But your mileage may vary.
Yep. And the other thing I saw in the chat coming up, I'm going to address this question real quick, then we'll take another one from the group. Somebody had asked, hey, how can I get a discount on the Security Plus vouchers? I saw Eduardo answer in chat, but I'm just going to say it for everybody out loud. How can I get, excuse me. So the question is, how do I get a discount on exam vouchers? If it is IDLE, Prince2, LPI, or CompTIA, we carry those on our website at deontraining.com/vouchers. When you go there, it'll ask you to pick the one you want. A pop-up will come and it'll ask you where you're located. We don't carry vouchers for every country yet. We're adding more all the time. Right now for Prince2 and IDLE, Those are worldwide. So wherever you are, we can help you and we get you a really good discount on those. For CompTIA, you'll get 10% off every single day by going to our website instead of going direct to CompTIA. Basically, they give us a discount because we help tens of thousands of you pass your exams every year. And so they give us a discount. We pass it on to you as our students. So whatever the retail price is, like Security Pluses are only $392. We give you 10% off. It works out to be about $339, $350, somewhere around there with that 10% discount. And that's what you'll end up paying. Right now, we do cover all of North America. We cover all of Europe. We are adding other places around the world over the next 3 or 4 months as we are continuing to build out our system and rolling those out. So we will eventually have pretty much the whole world covered, but right now we've got about 50 plus countries for CompTIA. If we don't carry yours, then you're going to have to go to CompTIA. What you'll find with most discount sites is they only cover US and Canada. We go a little bit further. We cover most of Europe and some other countries around the world, and we're trying to add the rest of them over time. The other thing I would say is if you're an academic student, so you have a .edu email address because you're in college, go to CompTIA directly, Google the academic store. It's about 50% off. So you're actually going to get a better deal going to them if you're a college student. If you're not a college student, you're going to get a better deal coming from us. So that being said, that's the 2 places to go to get discounts. I'd be very wary if you Google online discount CompTIA vouchers. You'll find a lot that pop up where they are short-term vouchers, like you buy it today and they expire in 3 weeks. That's not ours. When you buy ours, you're going to be good for at least 11 months, somewhere between 11 and 12 months usually. So you've got plenty of time to take your exam. And the other thing is some of those places, they'll say, hey, we're going to give you a voucher, and then you never get your voucher and they took your money. So, you want to stay with reputable sites, whether that's us because we're a CompTIA partner, or going to CompTIA directly, or going to Pearson VUE directly, or one of the other instructors out there like Get Certified, Get Ahead, Mike Myers, Professor Messer. They all sell discounted vouchers just like we do, same 10% off. But I think they only carry US, where we cover more of the world, and we're trying to cover the entire world. So you'll see that coming up soon. All right, next question. It's being blocked by the chat window. All right. Hey, Jason, are you planning on making content for the new CYSA exam? Yeah, we answered that earlier. We already filmed the new CYSA version 3 course. It is going to be coming out in May when the new exam comes out, and we are currently working on the practice exams for those 2. Those will also be coming out in May. Same thing with Security Plus that's coming out later this year, October, November. We will also have a Security Plus version 701 course coming out when CompTIA launches the exam. For those, anything that generally the rule is anything that we already teach, when there's a new exam coming out, we will launch the exam with CompTIA when they launch the new one. We always try to do it with them. For new exams that we don't currently cover, for example, we were working on Project Plus version 4, and then they launched version 5. So we deleted that, started over with version 5, and we're going ahead, which is why we didn't launch it with the launch of version 5 back in October. And we're going to launch it pretty much the next couple months as Reed and I finish that. But for the ones we already have, like Pentest Plus, A Plus, Security Plus, Network Plus, CISA Plus, CAS Plus, when there's a new version, we will be out within the first usually 3 or 4 weeks of that coming out, if not at the same time. All right, and last question. Brittany asks, if I want to be a systems administrator, should I skip A Plus and go straight to Security Plus? Reed.
Ooh, honestly, I would probably just stick with A plus as a system admin because that's going to familiarize yourself with both the software and the hardware that you'll need to be an adequate and effective system administrator. And then if you start to really enjoy the security content that's included in the exam, then I would start to go that way. But as a systems admin, man, there are so many different ways to bridge out from that. Honestly, I would probably go from A plus and then get an entry level cloud certification, probably AWS or Azure, and then go from there. But that's just that my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would say A plus is going to be really valuable to you as a system administrator because you're going to learn, especially in Core 2, that's the operating system certification. So in that, we cover network, we cover Windows, we cover Linux, and we cover Mac, as well as Google Chrome because Chromium and Chrome OS. All of those are covered in A plus Part 2, which is Core 2, which is the software certification. So again, it's one of those things that I think it'd be valuable to you because in Security Plus, we talk about things like creating a password policy, right? You should create a password policy where the password changes every 90 days. It needs to be 16 characters long, complex, longer, and stronger, all that kind of stuff, right? But in Security Plus, they don't ask you to do it, right? In A Plus, they actually expect you to do it. How do you reset a password? How do you put somebody in a group? How do you set permissions? How do you do, what's the difference between NTFS and FAT32 permissions, right? All that kind of stuff is all covered in Core 2 of A+, and that's why it's valuable to get it. And even if you don't get the certification, getting the knowledge is really valuable. So I would recommend that. But yeah, so I think it's useful. And then as Reed said, as you become a system administrator, a lot of system administrators now are being done in the cloud. And so being able to do Linux is critically important because almost every server is running on Linux, with the exception of those handful of Microsoft servers that are out there. I will tell you, Linux runs 80 to 90% of the internet servers. So you better know Linux, right? Which is why we created a Linux Plus course to help you learn Linux, right? Because that's really important if you're going to be in the cloud as a system administrator or a cybersecurity analyst trying to defend these Linux servers. You have to understand things like IP tables and how to do routing and how to do all your setups and how to do all your protections inside those boxes too. So
also, Jason, I'd like to give a quick plug to Jamario, our other instructor. So he's currently working on the Cloud Plus certification. So soon to come. Cloud Plus is also coming out soon.
Yeah, so we actually just finished filming Cloud Essentials Plus today, and Jamario's on a plane back to California because he flew out here to Orlando to film it with me. He's going to go back to his place and finish the labs, which are the hands-on demos in the cloud, and then the course will be coming out probably in the next 4 weeks at most. We're really close to having that one done. And then the next ones we're going to be doing are some cloud certs in that vein. We're starting with Essentials and working our way up, as opposed to what I did when I started teaching CompTIA stuff, which was I started at Network Plus, then I went to CISA, then Pen Test, then Security Plus, then CAS Plus, then A Plus, and we were all over the place. And it wasn't a good experience for our students. So we decided we're starting at the bottom, Cloud Essentials, then we'll go into something like Cloud Plus, AWS Practitioner, AZ900, GCP Practitioner, and work our way through some of those cloud things. And Jamario is leading up those efforts. So it'll be a Jason and Jamario course for those. If you're taking any of the project management courses, you're going to see me and Reed together. If you see any data courses, you're going to see me and Reed together. And we're going to keep doing that. CompTIA has 2 more data courses that are coming out later this year, or certifications coming out later this year. And once we get the objectives of those, Reed and I will be looking through those and figuring out which of those we're going to be doing next and start working through those as well. So you'll start seeing those. So yeah. And then Greg, I did see Greg James said he's near Orlando and would love to pick mine sometime. Greg, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I travel quite a bit for my job, and so I'm not always in Orlando. I happen to be right now, and I will be here for at least another month or so before I go on my next trip. But if you're in the area, we can find a time that you and I can probably meet up and grab lunch or something. That's usually the only free time I have is like lunch. So there's a million places near my office. We can pick a restaurant and meet up over there and spend 30 minutes or an hour and you can pick my brain a little bit. All right. Any other questions, Christina? Was that all? All right, cool. So I think we wrapped up all the questions. We've been going for about an hour and a half. So we're going to let you all go. Thank you again for joining us. Just so you know, we are doing these about once a month now, and it will usually be Jason plus somebody. So last week it was me and Jamario. This time it was me and Reed. I think next month is me and Jamario again. Next time you're going to see things a little bit different. Last week and last month and this month we did Ask Me Anything. For those, we actually are going to have topics for the rest of the year where basically the first 15 minutes we'll be teaching you something, right? Whether it's, hey, we want to do some hands-on with Nmap, or we want to do, here's how you do read a log, or whatever it happens to be based on the instructor that's with me. We'll be doing that, and then we'll be taking your questions for the remainder of the time. And each of these usually lasts somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes. So so I think that's all good stuff. And I mean, we look forward to seeing you guys again. Any questions you all have, you can always post it in the comments, either in the Facebook group or in the YouTube channel. I know we have people on LinkedIn watching us, Twitter watching us, YouTube and Facebook. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, it's facebook.com/groups/Dion Training. We've got about 35,000 students in there right now, which is a very small portion of my students since I have almost 1 million students worldwide. And so we'd love to get more people in there. And again, you can always watch the YouTube channel as well. That's always a free and open resource to you. This Ask Me Anything, we're actually going to go through and our team is going to chop it up into pieces. So all the individual questions that were like 3 to 5 minute answers, they're going to be taking those and releasing those as YouTube shorts on the YouTube channel as well as in our Facebook group. So if you're a member of either of those, you'll be able to see those. So if you missed anything, those will be coming up pretty much every day or two. You'll see a new one popping up. And we did that last month as well. And we'll continue to do that throughout the year. So you guys will still be able to get great information, even if you can't stay for the whole thing. Or if you're like, hey, that one thing you talked about becoming an intelligence analyst, I want to share that with my friends, but I don't want to share this hour and a half webinar. You don't have to do that. You can just share that one little video. So Yeah, other than that, I want to thank you all again for being here. And if you're not listening to the Your Cyber Path podcast, definitely you should be if you're trying to get into the cybersecurity world. So go to yourcyberpath.com and check that out. That's me and my partner Kip. And we cover everything: resumes, interviews, negotiations. We even had a series where every week we were talking to a different person in a cybersecurity role as we went around the entire SOC. We talked to a pen tester, we talked to a SOC analyst, we talked to a SOC manager, we talked to an asset management person, and we talked like, what is the day in the life look like for you? And so if you're brand new to this industry and you're like, where do I want to be? Because there's a million cybersecurity jobs and everybody just thinks pen tester, go check out Your Cyber Path. You'll figure out the right job for you based on your personality and where you want to break into the market. So that's my last thing to say. I'm going to pass it to Reed for any final comments and to close us out.
Hey, thanks for joining us, folks. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great one, everybody. Bye.